Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Livingston, and I'm here on behalf of the Quorum Initiative today. We are a global group of women working together in honest and authentic ways to share information and mainly to clear the path to leadership positions, increase female representation on corporate boards, and raise awareness and investment in women owned and led businesses. We're kicking off a series of conversations with Quorum members and friends called Quorum Live. So I hope you'll be joining us as we kick off Women's History Month. I think this is very apropos. I am thrilled to welcome my guest today, Lynne Murphy-Rivera. And Lynne serves as Managing Director Americas for the Association of Executive Search and Leadership Consultants, known as AESC. Previously, she was with the Conference Board, Dow Jones, and Bloomberg. And Lynne serves as co-chair of Quorum's New York City chapter. So welcome, Lynne.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much, Julie. Very happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here with me too. You know, we talk. This topic today is beyond a business card: how to build a personal board of directors. And we talk a lot about having a mentor or an ally or a sponsor, but having a personal board of directors is a little bit different. And so we're going to go through kind of all the steps today in getting there. But why, like in general, why do professional women often feel unsure, unclear, or really uncomfortable and awkward about how to promote themselves in the workplace, no matter
Julie,
what level of management they're in?
the answer to that question is pretty simple, but it's also sad, and it's easy. It's easy. So let's end on a real positive note about it. I thought about it, and I can tell you that it really stems from a lack of self-awareness. So, I mean, very simple. If you don't know yourself, how do you promote yourself? If you're unclear, how are you going to be focused and present a pillar of strength in terms of who you are to the world? So I guess it begins with knowing what your strengths are. And I think women typically are very focused on what they're not good at and
Mm.
trying to fix, what am I not good at? Let me fix that. That
So the
time is,
whole notion of perfectionism, I guess, is what
oh,
comes into play instead of focusing first on your strengths and what you're great at.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, if you don't know what they are, it's hard to focus on them. So that a lot of time needs to be focused, and intentional energy needs to be placed on who am I? What am I good at? Who am I? What am I good at? You really have to work on that. It doesn't come naturally, So how did I do it? I mean, I'm still doing it. It's a work in progress, okay? And I say it starts with assessing those strengths, and there are lots of tools and services. Very simple, Gallup Strength Finder will help you, at least on a very, basic level, know what are those strengths. And then there are many others. You can do personality assessments, Hogan assessments, one of the leading assessment or organizations that the AESC supports. So there's a lot you can do, but you got to start with that. Start with what am I strong in, and how can I further strengthen those strengths? Don't
I
take them
love
for
one of
granted.
the things you said that really struck me, Lynne, is that this is an ongoing process. It's kind of never ending. And you may build strengths throughout your entire career. Hopefully you will.
Exactly.
And so you have to constantly kind of reassess that every so often.
Absolutely. And that's the fun in it. It's almost like a discovery. I mean, there's certain basic strengths that you have that will, if you continue to develop yourself, they'll stay there with you and they'll just strengthen, they'll be great. But then there are new things that will come up that you discover because you get involved with a personal board of directors and you learn from them, or you join an organization and you learn from them and then you develop those strengths. So it's all in the discovery that makes it really exciting, I think.
Wow, that is quite powerful. And so how did what is a personal board of directors and how did you create yours?
Yes, well, so I didn't just get this idea by myself. All right, let's be honest. So I am part of an organization, as you mentioned, called the Quorum Initiative, and we about gosh, it was I don't even know how long ago, a few years ago, pre-COVID, we started a personal board of directors test to see could we leverage each other's strengths even more intently? Could we be more of a support for each other as professional women? And how can we best do that? How can we get closer to each other and engage each other more? So I believe the chairman of our wonderful organization, the founder, Meg Sullivan, worked with a consultant to put together the groups. So we were just randomly placed, as far as I know. And I can tell you to this day, that group of women are still very much connected. Some of them
Really?
not so much as others, but three in particular, I am like I text them this morning, WhatsApp, hey, I'm going to mention you today. We are very well connected because we found a real value in just being together, and being together is relative because we were on Zoom most of the time because it was during COVID that
Right.
we actually got started. So
So you don't need 40 people to be on your personal board of directors. It's really just is it just cherry picking a few kind of advisors who will be
that's a good.
real and honest with you and have certain insights?
I think if I were to pick my own group, what I would make certain is that it's a smallish group. Let's say no more than 5, 6 total, so that you have time. You have time to actually connect, and you're not managing a group. And then the other part would be to make certain that it's a diversity of thought, diversity of experience, because you want to learn. So you don't want to have a panel of yes people, who are just going to nod their head and agree with everything you say. Frankly, the thing you learn most is when you have a difference of opinion and you have empathy and you listen and you learn from each other. Well, why do you see it that way? Well, I because of this, and why do you? Well, because of this. And then you can reflect on how you might use some of that knowledge, in your own business or way of being. So our group is amazing. So we have we have 2 women in finance, 1 in legal. There's me, and I'm an executive talent trade association. So we are all very unique, but all professional women in
Wow.
different stages of our career,
And
but
you're all in different industries, very different.
all in different industries. And we have moved from, we actually truly understand each other. And I'd say the number one reason, and you haven't asked this yet, but why do you want a personal board of directors?
Right.
And what do they serve? They really serve as an accountability unit. I would say partner, but they're all accountable. We're all accountable to each other. So if we talk about our goals and our objectives, here's an example. And if you try to sort of backpedal why you didn't do something, or why you did not achieve, or at least take a step toward achieving the goal, we're not there to go, oh, that's okay. No, it's more, and we're not there to beat you up. It's about help us to understand why you didn't make that move. What else are you trying to do? What got in your way? What are the blocks that prevented you from making that next step?
And
Yeah.
how did the conversations go? Like, in terms of, I'm already like, I know a lot of women probably feel similarly
Mm.
about criticism and judgment. And how does your personal board of directors, how should you expect them to interact with you in that way?
Oh, that is such a good question. Because naturally you're going to feel a little intimidated, or maybe you might fear that some of the things you're being held accountable for, you just you don't want to hear it. Let's say you don't want to hear that. So it starts with trust, and a lot of courage, because these are people who you're somewhat bearing your soul to. We're pretty honest with each other, and we used to meet, just full disclosure, a lot more frequently, and lately we've just sort of moved off. As a result of this meeting, by the way, we have scheduled our next meeting this month. So thank you for this.
That's good.
Um,
I'm glad we could
you,
act as a prompt.
you helped us. But the way that the best way that we started our discussion was with she is now a personal coach, so an executive coach. She started with us, sort of developing that skill, and then became certified. And now her name is Gertrudis Achikar, and she is the one who led the facilitation of our discussion because she was trying to try
Wow.
on,
Wow.
her skill, her new skill, and she did such an amazing job. She is now my coach, and she would ask us questions, sort of, so what have you accomplished? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to create? In a round robin, what got in the way? And you have to answer that question, or at least try. And if you backpedal, which you don't want to do that. We weren't hard on you. We weren't hard on people for backpedaling, just very honest. And that began with the trust. We all became a lot more courageous of just putting ourselves out there. And the more you do that, the better you are in doing that in other situations, in a board meeting, in a management meeting, and you have to be courageous. Well, we help each other do that.
Wow. And so how do you pick these individuals? How do you identify them? Are there different skills, levels of experience that you're looking for to kind of round things out?
Well, I was looking at the mentorship versus sponsorship, ally versus mentor, coach, what all of those different terms. It definitely makes a difference in the group and how you view the group. What are they? So we're peers. So you want someone who is really similar in I don't want to say status, that's such a bad word, but in experience maybe, or
Management level?
type of management level,
Okay.
perhaps. One of our people, Amy, she manages a large group of people. Deborah, we're talking hundreds of people, yet different than, let's say, Gertrudis and I, yet from a level standpoint of, what we do day to day, the challenges we face day to day, we can make an impact on each other. So you have to think about, what value do I bring? What value am I trying to get back? And will I have a voice, and will I learn? So it's really a two-way street. And I don't know, we worked out really well. We actually have one other person I didn't mention who's a lot more junior than us. But
Wow, that's really interesting. And so how does she come in? Like how does that, and they're all women, by the way.
and they're all women. They're all
Okay.
women. What's so interesting there is, I think the first thought was, will she feel weird being with these, women with, 20 plus years of experience, and she has maybe 10, will that be weird for her? I can tell you from day one, she jumped right in, added value, because it's lived experience. Number one, it's what your day to day is. I've had the opportunity of meeting her mother during a retreat that Quorum Initiative had back in May, and she brought her mom. And I said, gosh, I can see how she advanced so quickly with
Wow.
us, because, her rapport with her mom, and the way that she's built her career, and it's also so important, I think, this multi-generational experience. So when I talk about diversity in a personal board of directors, generational diversity is just as important as ethnicity, as levels, whatever you can do to kind of challenge your thinking and do that in the group.
Mm.
That's how
So
you build a
different
group.
perspectives. So Lynn, are you you created this personal board of directors for yourself?
Yes.
Are you, but is it sort of that your personal board of directors for everyone in this particular group, or do they have their own separate personal board of directors, for example?
I don't think they have separate, and
So
again, we're
your
all,
particular, I guess a personal board could work in a few different ways.
oh, yes.
Yours seems to have more of a mutual uh,
Yes.
relationship.
Yes,
So,
yes. And I think that there are a lot of different ways that you can have a personal board, or at least approach that. And it's sort of like these three things that you need. How do you build the support system? Because essentially that's what we're talking about, right? I would say number one, you want to get a coach. Like, get a coach, just get one, right? Find one. LinkedIn has an amazing system where I found my first coach. I think it's LinkedIn Pro, where you can actually search through interview. I looked at 4 or 5 of them, found one, Nancy Scher, she's amazing. The next thing you want to do is find a professional association. Quorum Initiative 8-9 years ago was my professional association of choice. I was introduced to it. I've been with it ever since, and it is a major support for me. And then number 3, commit to continuous learning, right? So, you find a way to either, join a book club, read, get a certification, learn something that you didn't think you would be interested in, but you find, you found value in it. So you're just, it's all about that discovery that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
That is part of the support system that can help you. This is in addition to the personal board, or as you're approaching a personal board of directors, because you want to keep adding value no matter whether you have one or not. And
I really like how you talk about discovery as being a very important part of continuing to build and grow in your career. Some people think that you could stop learning once you get, I don't know, graduate degree or whatever, but really it makes a career, I think, so much more exciting, interesting, and provides you so many different ways to grow and expand your knowledge and your position within your organization or in your industry, when
exactly.
you continue to learn in some way.
Yes. And that learning adds value to your person, right? So those are what the strengths that you can add in that toolkit that we talked about earlier. Like, know what those strengths are. And when you do that, you can be found. You don't really need to go looking. And frankly, the executive recruiters are out there looking for people who are continuously improving themselves, and are promoting their brand on LinkedIn and other places, are becoming thought leaders in different areas. You learn something new, be a thought leader in that area. And it's
Right,
not,
because that shows that you're serious about something.
yes,
You have a certain type of authority and you can
yes,
speak about it fluently. That really shows an executive recruiter or, hiring manager who you are as a person.
yes. And first and foremost, it shows you who you are, and it gives you that confidence. And when you have the confidence, you come off authentic. You immediately are engaging, and also you can lead others better. So if when you're an executive and you're in that position of leadership, you want to walk the talk, and what better way than to show up as someone who is a continuous learner, lifelong learner, who is courageous, who understands their strengths, and you can help others that way, frankly, because geez, isn't that what it's all about?
For me, yes, absolutely. I mean, I went back and got my graduate degree in my late 40s and people would say to me, "Well, why are you doing that now?" And I said, it's always been a goal, and I always want to keep learning. And you know what? It fine-tuned my skills and it opened me up to so many different things.
Exactly. I mean, Julie, you and I met, and I think about the discussions we had early on about, your business and
Yeah.
your trajectory. And again, every little bit that we learn from each other, we take that if you're truly listening, and then you can put it in your toolkit and move on. It's sort of like teach one, help one, however that goes. You learn something new, and it is not corny. Some people may think that, but once you get into the throes of establishing, what your goals are, and aligning those with your strengths, it really does work. And do you have a bad day? Can you avoid having bad days?
Well,
No.
if you're human, you do have some bad days.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
But if you have a personal board of directors, you can develop greater resilience and
That's
groundedness because they will be supporting your decisions and your risk taking, your next
oh,
moves, whatever that might be.
yes. I mean, we help each other, particularly. I talk about accountability, but the support part is, you know, if for instance, if we talk about that, if we answer that question, what was the roadblock that got in the way of our achieving whatever we were trying to achieve? That's where the real sharing comes, because often it's not a real roadblock, it's just perceived. It's the perception. And then when you're sharing with the group, um, if they're honest, and if they've been listening, you'll find out that there really wasn't a roadblock. It was just something that you needed to talk out,
Yeah.
and you needed to find a different angle. So
Lynn, one other question. When you're forming a personal board of directors, would you say that it's important to identify people who are outside of the organization where you're currently employed?
that is such another great question. That's my experience. So um, I think it's good to find the why. Why am I saying yes? It's a good thing. Number one, it's my experience, but number two, I think you want to bring value to the organization. Think of yourself, especially if you're not an entrepreneur, you don't have your own business, but you're working within an association or an organization. What can you keep bringing to them? You can't just look for everything to come from the organization. So if you're
Absolutely.
right, so if you're finding your board of directors, personal board from the outside, think of the benefit that does for you and your organization. Because I mean, the people that I mentioned, they come from outside of my personal board. They're from outside of my industry. So I'm bringing knowledge that I'm learning from my personal board to my group, to my company, to my association. That makes me valuable. So it just makes more sense, I think, when you to take it outside of your
I
organization.
agree. I think I agree with you because also people within the organization can have different can play different roles in your career and helping you rise up.
Exactly.
You could find an ally or a sponsor, for example, but somebody who's on the outside really has a fresh perspective, doesn't have that tunnel vision that we all get from working in a particular culture and
Yes,
organization, and can really provide you with some very fresh thinking, and they're not tied in
exactly.
to an existing framework.
Yes, yes. It really is. You say fresh perspective. It really is that, because it's like, wow, I never thought of it that way, because they have no idea. They're not there day to day. They don't know. They're not in the industry. They don't know at all what you're talking about. So you can try on your ideas with them and see how they land, and come up with some really good feedback. On how to kind of recast what you thought was the only way to do something. You get, I think, real good feedback from people on the outside who are your personal board of directors, so you can trust. Trust is
That's,
big.
that's great. Lynn, thank you so much for joining me today. Everyone, if you'd like to connect with Lynn, go to her LinkedIn page and reach out. And I hope that you'll continue to watch this series from the Quorum Initiative and check out our upcoming programs. We have some great ones coming up in March. Go to quoruminitiative.com. And I'll see you next time. And happy Women's History Month.
Thank you. Bye.